Welcome to Sunday School Junkie, the podcast for anyone who's addicted to reaching kids for the kingdom. Whether you're a brand new volunteer, a veteran teacher, or just looking for inspiration, this is the place for tips, tricks, and stories from the best in apostolic children's ministry. Let's talk shop, share resources, and celebrate the incredible opportunity we have to shape young lives for Jesus. Now let's get started. I am joined today by Eric Stender. Eric serves as a children's pastor at Christian Life Tabernacle in Huntington, Indiana, with Pastor Fishburne. Eric has self-published several books. Two particular ones that I have loved are, and actually I've loved every one, but the two that tie into today's episode is the Samaritan perspective and the Joseph perspective. Each chapter of these books tells the story, their stories, through a different person's eyes, a different character in the story. Each chapter is from their perspective. So, Eric, welcome to Sunday School Junkie. Tell us maybe a little bit more about who you are and your books and all that stuff.
All right. Well, I'm Eric Stender, and I've been doing children's ministry for what feels like forever, but still not long enough. Grew up in church as a bus kid, and now I'm a children's pastor reaching more bus kids. So, full circle.
That's good stuff. That is good stuff.
As far as the books go, they're just some cool books. Had some cool ideas, and I thought I'd write them down.
You're just a creative person, aren't you?
We try. Yeah. We try.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I'll tell you that. Excuse me. I did love both of the perspective books. Truth's Echo, is that your third book?
Yeah, Truth's Echo is my third book. That's the full novel.
Yeah.
The Samaritan's perspective was actually just supposed to be... I had an idea for a book that I still haven't written because it scares me. And the Samaritan perspective was more of an idea. Does this idea work? This idea of writing the story from different character perspectives. And then I wrote the Joseph perspective to make it longer, to see how that would work, get a little more practice in. And then eventually I'll write the one I want to write, but it involves Jesus on the cross. Yeah. And that whole system, that whole thing that just scares me, and making sure I get it accurate and be right.
Wow.
So
yeah, I think accuracy and all that, we're going to talk about that in a bit, I think. I really liked, and we'll get into this later too, but in the Samaritan perspective, how I think it was the last chapter was the biblical perspective, and that's pretty cool. So, in Joseph's perspective, I like Benjamin is like, I don't know. I guess there's a lot of biblical characters that just intrigue me, and Benjamin's one of them. So I was kind of hoping to see more Benjamin in there, but anyhow, glad you're here. So we're going to talk a bit about perspectives. And so I think my first question I really want to ask is, where did the whole perspective approach start for you? And I assume, and this is just an assumption, but I assume you use different perspectives in your teaching as you're teaching as well. So I was kind of wondering, did it come from the teaching side of things, or was it in the writing?
So honestly, it was born out of chaos. So you ever have those Sunday school moments where you just know it's a full moon because of how the kids are acting?
Oh, man.
Like, something's going on. It's crazy.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. So we were upstairs. We had a Sunday school, some kind of Sunday school thing on Thursdays, I want to say it was, upstairs in a room. And the kids were just having one of those days where everything was just crazy. And we could not get their attention. And I knew what I had planned was not going to work. So out of desperation, creativity, I don't know, I became the lion in Daniel and the Lion's Den.
There you go.
And I told that story of how I wanted to eat the man who invaded my cave, and I could not because there was a figure, an angel, in the way. I was hungry, but I could not eat him. And I'd never told the story that way, never even thought about it that way. But it turned out to get all the kids' attention, and it worked out really well. So that's where it came from.
Wow. And that's a good classic story that became fresh for you and those kids, huh? Man,
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So what's changed in your teaching once you started asking, what does this look like from like the lion's perspective or different things like that? How did that change your teaching?
Well, really, you can look at almost any story in the Bible from different perspectives. We tend to tell stories from one side or from the main character's point of view. Like we tell Gideon's story from Gideon's point of view, but what if you flipped it, and told it from the enemy's point of view? Or you could do that with anything, but it's really just taking that 360 mindset. What were the miracles like for those who saw it happen? Or what were the miracles like for those who heard stories about it later? Like everything got spread through the crowd. Everyone found out about who Jesus was through rumor and through story.
Oh, that's
so
right.
What was it like for those people?
That's so good. That's so cool. And like, you're right that it's so easy to fall into the trap. Really, it's easy to fall into the trap of just telling the story from the perspective, the one perspective, the whatever it may be. Just because, like, as we're writing the curriculum, the Acts in Action, we're both on that writing team, and it's like it can be so easy to just, because we have the topic, we have the story, and then you just bam, go with it. But man, taking it from that other perspective, I think it's huge. And I think it's also why this next book that was just released, when this comes out, this will be just released, the Outcast book. It's like as a team, I know it's our most anticipated, most excited book that we've done so far.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, it's just, and it ties back to perspective. Like we took it from a different perspective. So, as
we took characters that were in a different place or you wouldn't normally think of as doing something great and wrote stories about.
Yep. So let's talk a bit KidMin stuff kind of first. When leaders hear perspective, they usually think of Bible story creativity, which is really what we've been talking about so far. But it also applies to real life, like kids' behavior, volunteers, parents. Kind of my last episode of Sunday School Junkie was just on the power of positive intent, and really it's kind of the same mindset. It's when you take things with positive intent, you're really changing your perspective. So, what's an example of a common maybe KidMin moment that gets misread, and then how does perspective fix it?
Let's talk about behavior. Okay, you mentioned that. That's a good one, because sometimes we have behavioral problems in Sunday school class because a kid is bored. You might have the behavioral problem in a Sunday school class because the kid is hungry, or maybe they're just having a bad day and something's going on at home and they can't talk about it.
Boy, that hungry is one that I didn't even mention in the last episode, but it's impactful, and we take it for granted a lot of times.
Yeah, that's why we had a couple in our church that started a hot breakfast. And they're adamant, no, we're not doing donuts. We're doing a hot breakfast every Sunday. We're not doing Pop-Tarts. We're doing a hot breakfast every Sunday.
That's good stuff.
And we love it. And the kids love it. Because for some of those kids, it's unfortunate that might be their only hot meal, for that weekend or that week even. But back to behavior, some of those kids are having issues just because they're hungry or just because they're having a bad day or they need an outlet. Or you ever pray with someone at the altar and you think they're praying for the Holy Ghost and really their dog died? That's perspective.
Right.
Why are they up there praying? So that's why you want to ask and find out what's going on. Not just, that's it right there, you're getting the Holy Ghost. No, they're just crying because their dog died. And that's a rough moment. I've had that moment actually, praying with someone and they're like, no, my dog died. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
God, I misread that.
Changes a bit. Yeah. The good news is
we're gonna pray a whole different way right now.
Yeah. The good news is God does care about that. So
He absolutely does.
All right. So in the books, you do write from characters that a lot of teachers will never slow down to really think about. Like in Samaritan, there's a chapter from the thief. So, that's not a perspective that's usually taken. So why do you think that's so powerful for kids?
Well, even in the Samaritan perspective with the thief, for example, there was a reason. I write a reason in the book, but there's a reason they were there. There's a reason the Levite was crossing the road. There's a reason that all those characters did what they did. They weren't just mean. They weren't just rude. They had a purpose for why they passed by, at least in my mind. And that's powerful for kids because everyone relates to the story in a different way. If you can tell the story from a different perspective, you can hit a whole different audience or a whole different relationship with those kids and pull them in a whole different way. They've heard David and the giant,
right?
David and Goliath, 100 ways from Sunday from the point of view of David. Well, tell it from Goliath's story, Goliath's point of view. He's the main fighter. He's the guy that's in charge. Send me a man. And he thinks he's big and bad, and all of a sudden this puny kid who comes out of nowhere with just a sling thinks he's going to take on the giant.
Good stuff.
That changes the story.
Sure does. Okay, we are about to shift gears into our twist segment for this episode. But before we do, I've got to announce the winner from last episode's twist, where we played Two Truths and a Lie, KidMin edition. Thank you to all that sent in responses and replies. We had one get it right, and ironically, it was Sister Bree Hinckley who guessed right, and so from her own Cash App, she was able to be blessed. Now, let's get into this week's twist. All right, so I'm adding in this year a recurring segment called The Twist. Today's twist, I'm going to call the Perspective Pivot. It's
okay.
Very practical in what we're doing here. Every listener can do. Every listener could take their lesson this coming week and apply this fun little game and see what they come up with. So we're going to play it. It's the same Bible moment, but an unexpected angle. And we're going to go to John chapter 4, the woman at the well, which isn't really like a classic kid story for most classes, but it is loaded with perspective. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to give you a viewpoint that you maybe you haven't taught from before, and you've got 30 seconds to jump into that viewpoint. What are they thinking, feeling, and assuming? And actually just take 30 seconds total to get into the viewpoint, and then what's the takeaway for KidMin leader or maybe for the class or whatever, okay? You ready?
Sure. Actually, maybe. We'll find out.
Yeah, okay. I've got a timer set here on my phone. So hopefully that doesn't
So all of these questions are from the woman at the well.
Yes. I'm going to give you the perspective like a character in the story, and then you've got 30 seconds. And you can do it in less, but you've got no more than 30 seconds to give me the perspective and then the takeaway. All right. So the first perspective is from the disciples returning with food, and you can go now.
Oh, man. All right. So maybe they're murmuring. Maybe they're trying to figure out what's going on. Maybe they're fighting amongst each other. Well, I'm sure Jesus knows what he's doing. Or, you shouldn't be talking to her. But we don't do that. Maybe there's some sticking up for him. Maybe there's some still confused because, they're not very far into Jesus' ministry at this point. They're still trying to figure out who this guy is. He's done a ton of miracles, but what is he doing? Why is he? Maybe he's ruining his relationship. Maybe he's ruining his reputation. Doesn't he know?
Ooh, yeah.
And then they get there.
And what's the takeaway?
The takeaway is God's ways are always better than our ways. What we see isn't always the truth, and that we can easy to jump to conclusions, but God knows exactly what's going on.
There you go. All right, perspective number 2. The townsperson who knows her reputation.
So they're making an assumption probably about Jesus at this point. They think he's the 6th husband. They think he's just another guy. There's just another dude out there hanging out. That's my guess. They're looking at it from that perspective.
And so
really not knowing what's going on. So the takeaway is it's easy to see things that aren't true.
Ooh, look at that. All right, perspective number 3, the water jar that she leaves behind.
So what if in that instant you look at the water jar as an animate and not inanimate character, but say it's a real life character that had feelings and thoughts. So what if the jar was like, hey, what's going on? Where are you going? Wait, we've been together for so long. Why are you leaving me? What's going on? The jar is confused. The jar doesn't understand. Or maybe the jar is excited because the jar has always known what she's done is wrong. And the jar is excited. And what you think is condensation on the side of the jar is really the jar crying.
Oh, happy tears.
Those are happy tears. Yeah.
Man.
Either way.
Man, yeah, you think about that. You take a little water jar, right? So the jar, man, as you were just talking about that, I just thought, so yeah, the jar is lonely too.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's got to come to this well at a time when no other jars are at the well. You know, she's got to draw her water because of her shame and her lifestyle at a time when nobody else is there. So that water jug is so lonely and so impacted by her sin too. And then bam, he hears this crazy story from this guy sitting on the well, and ooh, all right, now we get to come back when it's time. And then all the water pots come because she told the whole city all about it. Man, that's good stuff, man. All right. So when you rotate the camera and take the stories from a different angle and a different lens, you don't change the truth. You just bring all those different perspectives out.
Right. Well, because I think we forget sometimes that these aren't just stories. These are things that really happened, right? Yep. Right. Oh, so there really were townsfolk. The disciples really did come back and had questions like, "What is going on?" Yep. There really were people who were impacted on the sidelines, and they're not really on the sidelines because those people helped spread the gospel. They just never made it into the story.
Yep.
Well, there's actually a song by an artist. I can't remember his name. If we weren't on the podcast, I would know his name. But our very first super church was about Bible stories from characters that have no names.
Oh man, yeah. You don't even know my name, I think is what that song is.
Yes, that's it.
Yep.
And we took the super church from that perspective, and we just had a pop-up character who told this thing about what had happened to them. And really, I ended it by saying all of these characters, the Bible never records their name, but all their names are written in the book of life.
Well, that's good.
God knows exactly who their name is.
Go on and preach a bit.
You might. It was good.
Fun. All right, let's so jump back into the episode here, back to Samaritan's perspective. I mentioned earlier, the last chapter is the biblical perspective. And I think a concern that some leaders might have, if I start to imagine these stories from different viewpoints, am I drifting away from Scripture? So in that light, how do you keep perspective teaching creative but still biblical?
Well, that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure I did when I wrote those books. I wrote those books with my Bible open, verse by verse. I wanted to make sure I was as close to the biblical truth as possible. Obviously, we had to make some creative licenses with some of the stories because you don't know what happened. But you can tell what could have happened and still interject what did happen from the Bible. Because we know what did happen. And we know those characters were there. We know those are, again, real life people who saw things, who experienced things, who felt things. Yep. I mean, the townspeople who were on the outside saying these guys are drunk, when the Holy Ghost fell, they really thought they were drunk, or maybe they were just being dirtbags.
Right.
But but then they experienced, wait, no, this is real? Oh, wait, this is for me? Many of them were probably a part of the 3,000.
Yeah, that's such a good thought. Yep. Hey, man, wow. Goes back to positive intent, too. That's good stuff. Good stuff. And I think, in teaching things too, like, because I've heard, and I'll probably do more with this somewhere in the future, but, the David and Goliath story, the very classic David and Goliath story. I've heard somebody tell that through the perspective of the rock. David,
that'd be cool.
Yeah, it was super awesome and super cool. I'll probably work on something with that here pretty soon. But that'd
make a great kids book.
Even taking, it's been asked for. Even and so even those inanimate objects that would never. Obviously, that can't be specific. The Bible can't have a chapter about the stone from David's deal because it's not an inanimate object. But Jesus did say, hey, if you guys are quiet, these stones are going to cry out. So you can give life. Jesus gave life to him, right? So we can too, I guess. And we can use that creativity without replacing what the Bible's teaching, but to just bring it out in a different way.
Absolutely.
Well, let's shift gears. We are about 20 minutes in, I think, so we'll shift gears and start to wrap this up. One of the things that I wanted to talk about for a minute, because I know in this past year, I've done some stuff with it. Obviously, we both worked on the curriculum, like we said. We both work on the Spark magazine. I'm doing the ARC podcast, so there's different things being put out there. And it's we've done this self-published basically. And I know that there's a lot of other KidMin leaders that have resources inside of them, object lessons, Brother Booker, he's got, I think 3 object lesson books now, but there's others out there that have object lessons and probably enough to put in a book. They have curriculum ideas. They have a children's book or a young adult book or a novel that they want to write, but they don't release it. I think one thing that holds people back is because they think it has to be perfect. And another is that it's hard to, it sounds hard to self-publish a book, excuse me. But I think you've self-published multiple books. I've self-published a book. So kind of what made you start? What is it that you would tell the leader who keeps delaying?
I would say stop delaying, start doing. There's so much creative content in the apostolic movement. We just have to get it out there, right? We started Spark Magazine with no idea how to write a magazine, no idea how to publish a magazine, but we said, okay, there's a need, and we're going to fulfill that need. Now, I think God stepped in and helped direct us and make that possible because that's what he does.
Oh, yep. For sure.
Right? So I think if you trust God, you pray about it, rely on God, he will open doors that you did not think were possible. He will make a way where there shouldn't be a way because that's what he does. But don't delay. Get it out there. I'm not saying put out garbage. Put out your best work and get other people involved to help you make it better. There were definitely things we did for Spark that I couldn't do on my own.
Oh, man.
And you couldn't do on your own.
That's for sure.
But we have a team that makes it better. Even with my books, and maybe you'll mention that later, I sent it to you and was like, okay, help me out. What's good? What's bad? What's ugly? And you gave me some things, and I had to think about it and go, okay, I should really fix that.
Well, and I think, even with the... oh man, I was so shocked. My Itsy Bitsy book, Spider's got to do what a spider's got to do. I had you look at it, and this is a children's book. It's not deep, it's not long. It's a kid's book, and I tossed it over to you. Thank God that you took a look at it. But I think I woke up the next morning after you taking a look at it, and there was 108 or 107. Comments, suggestions, edits. And I'm like, man, on a kid's book, that's a lot. That's a lot to adjust, but it was all spot on. I don't think there was one recommendation that I said, this dude's nuts. I was like, oh, thank God. I didn't let that out like that. So I think those are really great points. Get somebody else's eyes on it.
That's synergy though, right? We're all greater than some of our own parts. We can work together. There's a great team of people out there who have resources, who have the abilities just to make things come to life. And in the end, we're all much better for it. Right?
Yep. And I like, True Secco. I got the opportunity to dig through that before it was out there in the wild. And I remember I sent you a lot of little bitty things too.
You did.
And then Kimberly, after it's published, after you changed the cover a couple times, Kimberly just finished reading it just like a couple weeks ago. And I remember, all the stuff that I found, and then Kimberly's reading it in the wild, in the public, and she found a minor typo in there somewhere, and it wasn't anything major, but still, it was like, man, that's got to be frustrating when you put so many hours into editing and perfecting it, and then you find there's still something in there. So, do you have advice for those that are really hung up on that perfection trap?
I think that's going to happen. You're going to have little things. I think what she found was like a period or an extra period, something super, super small.
It was tiny.
You know what? It doesn't take away from the story. It doesn't take away from the impact. It doesn't take away from the message I was trying to convey.
Yep.
So that period, as insignificant as it is, it's really insignificant. Like it didn't really matter. Then I'll go back and I'll fix it.
Yep.
So anyone who gets the new book will finish it. Actually, my pastor found something that I thought was, when he mentioned it to me, I was like, oh, I had no idea that was that way. I had to go look it up, and I'll fix that too. But
that's good stuff.
Those little things, they don't matter in the grand scheme.
Yep.
I mean, if I had to worry about my hair being perfect to go to church, I would never go to church. I'll still have much hair. If I had to make my costume perfect, or I'd make sure I had all the action songs 100% perfect, I'd never get on stage. We'd never do a skit. We'd never have any of the moments that we would be afraid to leave the skit or leave the script because it's got to be perfect. And you'd miss out on moments where God takes over and he says, no, it was great, but I have a better idea.
Yep.
Don't miss those moments.
I think it's so big. And I think perfection, isn't there a phrase? I don't know. We hear it a lot.
Perfection is the enemy of progress or something.
Yeah, enemy of progress.
Brother Bradshaw would know. He says it all the time, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's probably his. I need to have him on. Well, I've got him.
You.
Yeah, he's going to be on. Maybe we'll do a whole episode on perfection, the enemy of progress. But
he would be good at that.
And I think
that brother is far from perfect. Love Brother Bradshaw.
One of the things I heard fairly recently in the last few months was actually from Dave Ramsey, and when I heard this little reel, whatever, I think it was on social media, I thought, man, that's helpful to know, because Dave Ramsey, he's big time. He said, I've sold 20 million books with my name on them, and so far every single one of them has a typo in it somewhere. And I think, if Dave Ramsey, 20 million books, and he's probably not exaggerating on it, it probably is 20 million books.
Probably has, yeah.
Yeah. So, and if, there's a typo in there.
Well, somewhere. It's working.
Yeah.
I think it's working for him.
That's for sure. Perfection is the enemy of progress. All right. I think a good takeaway from there too is just start. I think the first episode of Sunday School Junkie was don't be a chicken. So just jump out there and start something.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's wrap this up in one sentence. If you could tell me, what would you want a KidMin leader or even a Sunday school teacher, whoever's listening, to remember about perspective?
I had a lot of random thoughts hit my brain. So I'm going to say, regardless of your perspective, God sees it another way anyway.
Ooh.
Because he sees all things from all sides and all angles at all time.
Oh, man. Wow. That's a big thought that would make my brain explode right there. Man.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Brother Eric Stender. Man, I'm glad we talked. Here's the challenge for everybody listening this week. Let's take one Bible story that you've told 100 times and rotate the camera. Tell it from a different viewpoint, and then ask your class one question. What did you notice that you never noticed before? That's it for this episode of the Sunday School Junkie. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, do all those things, but most importantly, share it with someone in kids ministry. Let's build a community of passionate teachers who are reaching this next generation. And if you're looking for more great children's ministry resources, I highly recommend checking out the Apostolic Podcast Network for even more amazing content. Till next time, keep loving, keep teaching, keep making a difference.